We've talked a lot about riding up and onto obstacles, but we've never talked about how to get back down. What's up? My name's Aaron. Welcome to the Shred Spot. Today we're going to talk about drops for beginners. I'm going to walk you through 3 different variations of doing it, but more importantly, we're going to talk about how to think about doing drops, how to think about landing, and 3 different ways to get the job done. Before we get too deep into this drops for beginners tutorial, I want to give you the rule of thumb that helped guide me as I was starting out. My rule was not to drop off anything that I couldn't already ride my bike up onto. We talk a lot on this channel about the order in which we learn things and how to stack one skill on top of another. Drops can kind of be an outlier when it comes to all that stuff. So the way to think about when you're ready to do a drop of a certain height is, can you ride your bike up onto it? Now for some of the lower heights, yes, you could probably just ride your bike off of it and it's not that big of a deal. But once you start getting over about 2 feet, that's when you really need to start thinking about your ability to balance, your ability to be in control of the bike, all those things. If you could ride up something like that, you probably have enough control to jump off something like that. Same thing goes for a 3-foot drop and so on and so forth. Now that I've given you my disclaimer on drops, let's talk about picking out your first drop. What I would recommend for your first drop is your best case scenario. So plenty of room to roll up to it, plenty of room on each side, and the perfect flat landing with a lot of room to roll out of it. Next, we're going to talk about how to think about drops. Now, when it comes to drops, it's not just jumping off something forward and back. There's also this side-to-side balance. You need to be able to take off in control of the bike as well as land in control of the bike. And so it's not just this forward and back, but also making sure you're controlled side to side. One of the things that my friend Jonathan always talks about is having his knees spread wide and his elbows spread wide to kind of make as wide of a base for the bike as possible. It helps you with your balance. It's almost like when you're on a balance beam and you put your arms out. Same thing, having your elbows out wide, having your knees out wide is going to give you the most balance as you approach this drop and jump off. Next, we want to talk about where we are over the bike. So the bike as it's dropping is going to land, in best case scenario, rear wheel first, and you're slowly going to put the front wheel down. But your body position over the bike is really important. You want to think about being over the pedals and think about not being too far in front of the bike. So you don't want your chest to be over the handlebars because that's going to make your front wheel drop a little bit harder and faster than you want it to. Think about sinking into the bike where you're bending your knees a little bit, you're bending them down and out, and sinking into the bike to cushion the landing of the bike. Think about your body as a suspension. So as you're coming down off this drop, you're landing your back wheel, you're using your body as a suspension to kind of soak up the impact, and then you're softly putting your front wheel down and rolling away. All of this transitions into the idea of landing, and we've talked about putting that back wheel down first, but how you want to think about landing is carrying your momentum forward. So I'll land on my back wheel with the rear brake on, but as my front wheel is then coming down, I'll let go of the rear brake and continue my momentum forward. If you have both brakes on and you just land in a dead stop, you basically land like a ton of bricks and all the impact comes into your bike and your body, and that's not pleasant, especially as you get up onto a higher ledge and a higher drop. So think about this idea of carrying your momentum forward as you land. That was terrible. That did not feel great. As you practice drops, you're also going to get a good sense of where you're going to land. And this comes with time. This comes from doing different kinds of drops. And we're going to get to the 3 different kinds of drops in just a minute. But really thinking about spotting that landing. Where are you going to land? And in this best case scenario drop situation, it doesn't necessarily matter where you land. But as you get better and better, you're going to get a feel for where the bike lands based on the height of what you're dropping off of. It's important to kind of catalog that in your brain. As you progress with your riding, you'll be able to be more precise. You can think about jumping to a certain thing at one point. Now that we've gone through all the theory about drops, how to think about the takeoff, how to think about the landing, all the other elements that make it work, let's talk about 3 different ways to drop. So the first of the 3 is the wheelie drop. This is maybe the easiest one. Most people are familiar with wheelies. You definitely want to have a bit of confidence doing wheelies before you start sending this one. But really what you're doing is a basic wheelie movement to get the front wheel up. Your forward foot should come around right as you get to the edge, and then it sets you up in the position to drop off and land in that strong position. The next one we're going to talk through is the side off. And you may have actually done a side off in the past if you were riding along something narrow and you started getting sketchy and you had to hop off to the side. It's just a small hop where you pick the bike up and you move it over just a few inches and you drop off something. You can practice this one on curbs. It's really a pretty easy one to learn on something small, and then you just build your confidence. The biggest thing you have to really pay attention to is that both wheels come up at the same time and you lift them away and off. If only one wheel comes off, you can get this kind of like slingshot motion where just the back wheel drops or just the front wheel drops, and that's not good. So make sure that you pick up both wheels evenly as you're jumping off to the side. But again, practice this one on curbs. Just pop off to the side one way or the other. Get a good feel for what this is supposed to do, and then start taking it up onto bigger and bigger features. The last and most common way for trials riders to jump off of stuff is the pedal kick drop. And it's exactly as it sounds. You back wheel hop to the edge of the drop and you pedal kick off. Now the benefit to all three of these skills is that you can learn them on flat ground and build your confidence on flat ground. You can learn how to do wheelies. In fact, I would suggest learning a wheelie gap before you do a wheelie drop. And I'm gonna link to a video below for that one. Same thing with pedal kick drops. You can learn how to pedal kick and you can learn how to pedal kick gap. Having those two skills in place already is going to make this a lot more simple for you as you get into that thing. Again, drops are kind of weird because they don't fit perfectly into your order when it comes to learning things, but if you've already learned wheelie gaps and you've already learned pedal kicks, you're going to have a much easier time executing on those two specific techniques when it comes to drops. The side off is something that you just have to practice and get confident lifting both tires up, but that's a great skill when it comes to tire placement and all kinds of other things. It's something you should also be practicing a lot. All three of these are really helpful and they're all useful in totally different scenarios. So I wouldn't say learn only one. These are all three good skills to have. And I'm going to show you kind of a slow motion version of each one of them so you can kind of watch what I'm doing on each one of the techniques and practice all three. What you can see here in this slow-mo of me doing a 3-pedal off the ledge is that my forward foot gets right to the strong position as I'm going off the ledge, just like if I was pedal kicking off. I'm in complete control. Next, on this slow-mo of the pedal kick, one thing that I really want to call out is how low I'm dropping my front wheel here. And there's a purpose for that besides style, of course. And the reason of that is to make the drop as small as possible. So if I'm able to get both wheels down as low as possible, my bike and body are falling the least amount necessary, and it makes it a bit more comfortable to land this move. The last thing I want to show you is something that I hadn't shown you before when we talked about the side off. And this is a different variation of it where you pivot your back wheel over while you're on the front wheel and you pick up your front wheel and put it to the side. This one definitely takes a little bit of extra work and especially timing with lifting up that front wheel, but you'll get it. I said this in the beginning of the tutorial and I just feel like I need to reiterate it. You get 0 points for crashing off big drops. They look cool or whatever, but really, like, after you've got it at about 3 feet of height, it doesn't change a whole lot after that. It just hurts a little bit more when you land and you have more time to think about it in the air. There's no real extra points for going higher and higher and higher. I would really think about being able to get up onto it first before you start dropping off it, and really like getting the technique and your balance, your confidence, your bike control dialed before you really go too much further when it comes to drops. Besides, when it comes to doing big drops, the one thing that is cooler than doing a giant drop is doing a drop to rear wheel, and I'm working on a tutorial for that as well, so stick around. One pro tip when it comes to bike setup for doing drops: think about your tire pressure. So you don't want to drop your tire pressure so low that you're hitting your rim and getting flat tires all the time, but you also don't want to have your tires pumped up rock hard like you would if you're street riding all the time. Think about giving yourself like forgiving pressure in the back tire, right? So you may only have it down to, let's say, 35 PSI as you're learning drops and then pump it back up as you get better. But if your tire pressure is rock hard in that back wheel, your body is gonna take all of the brunt of that impact no matter how smooth you land if you have a rock hard tire. So soften it up just a little bit to make things a little bit easier on your body as you do drops. Big shout out to the crew on Twitch that helped give me some insight into some of the things that beginners are struggling with on gaps and helped inform this video. If you're not joining us on Tuesday and Thursday mornings on Twitch, definitely come check it out. So I mentioned doing the 3-pedal gap and the pedal kick, and I've got tutorials for both of them. Hit the 3-pedal tutorial here or check out the pedal kick tutorial right here.